Hey, today I want to put out a video just to give you a quick update. This is Monero versus the IRS. So I've talked about this on a previous video. I would love to get your thoughts overall. Do you feel like as a citizen of your country that you have a right to privacy, not just in the US and whatever country you're in? Like, do you have a right to your own financial privacy? Or does the government have a right to know about every transaction that you ever make? I would love to know your thoughts about that. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know. So here's what's going on. If you haven't already seen, I didn't make a video on this previously. I'll try to make sure I remember to link it above, or I'll put it down in the description. But basically the IRS has dished out $1.25 million to two different companies to be able to attempt to crack Monero. If you don't know what Monero is a privacy coin. It is a cryptocurrency. It is the first, arguably the best cryptocurrency for privacy, meaning that on the blockchain, you can follow transactions for Bitcoin, for Ethereum, and practically every other cryptocurrency. If they have a blockchain, you don't know, if you know the person's name and you know what their wallet is, essentially, you can follow their transactions on the blockchain. You can follow those numbers and see what they did, where they interacted in the blockchain, what they purchased, how they purchased it, etc. Not how, but you know how much they purchased or whatever. You can follow that on a blockchain. Now, Monero, if you try to look at their block explorer, there's nothing there. Like, Monero is anonymous by default. Look at this chart over here, by the way. In the past month, it's went up 45%. Wow. But Monero is anonymous by default. Now, there's a lot of coins out there like Dash and Zcash that has anonymity built in, but it's an option. Like, you have to opt into it. With Monero, it's very different. For Monero, you actually have to opt in to allow someone to see your transactions. So you have to essentially opt out of privacy. It is private by default. That being said, the federal government doesn't like that. They want to come, at least in the US, the federal government doesn't like that. So they're coming after Monero. So they're trying to get someone to break Monero. Now, I think this is going to be interesting. I'm really fascinated to see in this little race who wins. Is Monero really good enough that the federal government can't crack it? Now, some people are just by default saying, oh, yes, the government can crack it, sure. But some of the greatest cryptographic minds in the world have been working on Monero. And it's ironically enough, it's one of the projects. Some of you who watch my videos are familiar with the project Hex. Well, if you're familiar with Hex, and you've heard Richard Hart make comments about people not updating GitHub or not doing commits into GitHub on Bitcoin. People, there's no financial incentive. People aren't doing it. What you'll find out in the Monero community is there are people updating GitHub, etc. There are people making updates, even though they're not getting paid to do it. This community very much is a community based on principles of privacy. It's a very interesting group of people specifically who are really devout to Monero as a privacy coin. But again, the IRS doesn't like it, so it's going to be fascinating to see if the IRS can break this. But here's Act 2. I told you this is Part 2, so here's what's going on. Check this out. First of all, a work group came out for Monero. They said, a Monero work group says the IRS should study Monero, not try to break it. Dollars are used for nefarious activities too. See, this is the complaint. This is why I'm following this story very closely. I actually believe that the U.S. government is going to ultimately, the same exact excuse they use for Bitcoin and they use for Monero, which what they tell you is Bitcoin's only for criminals. That's not true any longer because the government's realized that they can track Bitcoin. In fact, a lot of people say that the Fed coin, the cryptocurrency the government's developing of their own, which is not going to be public and is not going to be a third-party trustless blockchain. It's not a public blockchain. It's going to be a private centralized blockchain, which is a bit scary, but more about that later. Anyway, some people say that the same way that they attack Bitcoin and Monero, they're eventually going to track dollars. Why? Because the US dollar is relatively private as well. The government has to take your word. When you deal with cash, if you have a business that takes cash, if you're a waiter or waitress, the government has to somewhat take your word on what you are. Most people know that waiters and waitresses oftentimes underreport their tips. And literally, it's almost impossible to prove otherwise until we get to the Fed coin, but that's another story for another day. All right, so let's talk about this. What do they say about this work group? I think it's very interesting. The United States Internal Revenue Service has better ways to spend taxpayer dollars than offering bounties to break Monero's privacy, a Monero working group said. After the IRS announced it is offering up $625,000 to anyone who can break Monero, a major Monero-focused work group expressed their take on the matter. A spokesperson for Monero Outreach, an independent work group focused on Monero awareness and education, told Cointelegraph that the IRS should learn how Monero actually works instead. Monero Outreach's representative emphasized that crypto's features, in fact, provide users with a certain level of transparency, stating, $625,000 would be better spent by the IRS to hire a few consultants to teach their staff how Monero works and how its features allow users to opt into transparency. The spokesperson said that Monero is designed to function just like cash, highlighting that the US dollar also has a certain amount of privacy. Mark my words, this is how they're going to get people out of the dollar. They're going to say, oh, terrorist organizations use the dollar. It's your patriotic duty to opt out of using the dollar. Instead, use our new digital Fed coin. I can almost guarantee you that's what's going to happen. And if you believe me and you agree with me, smash that like button, ladies and gentlemen. We need to get this message out there so people are at least aware of it. And if you don't believe me, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so in the event that I'm wrong, you can make certain that you come back and tell me in the comments that I was wrong. But I don't think I'm going to be. I promise either way I'm going to report it on this channel. The US dollar is used for a majority of the world's nefarious activities, yet it is what dominates the IRS balance sheet. The IRS doesn't know how much cash you earned unless you report it, but you don't see them trying to break the US dollar. This is perfect. The IRS announced its bounty program to trace transactions on Monero and Bitcoin's Lightning Network. In early September 2020, the authority stressed that the program is driven by a lack of investigative resources for tracing transactions involving privacy coins used by illicit actors. Let's read that again. The authority stressed that the program is driven by a lack of investigative resources for tracing transactions involving privacy coins used by illicit actors. So they're saying, hey, we basically can't figure out what these guys are doing. We don't have the resources trying to figure out, hey, they bought this or they bought that. How do they buy it? We can't figure that out. So we want to hire someone else. Beautiful. The IRS is not that was sarcasm. The IRS is not the only institution that wants to break Monero's privacy. In August, a major cryptocurrency intelligence firm, CipherTrace, reportedly claimed that their crypto tracking tool is capable of tracing Monero transactions. Previously, Russia's Federal Financial Monitoring Service announced that its new crypto tracking tool will partially reduce anonymity of Monero transactions. While authorities and companies worldwide are apparently racing to crack Monero's privacy, the coin's protocol has some built-in transparency features. According to September 15th report by American law firm, Monero enables users and virtual asset service providers, or VASPs, to disclose certain transaction details associated with a given account to a third party. According to the firm, these features are part of the key functionality built into the Monero protocol. This enables users and the VASPs to disclose certain transaction details associated with a given account to a third party without publicly disclosing that user's transactional information. In addition, VASPs can require upfront disclosures as part of their registration process and on an ongoing basis to meet their obligations. Designed to provide a private and untraceable cryptocurrency, Monero is a top privacy-focused coin by market capitalization at publishing time. According to Monero Outreach, the coin also has the third highest number of code contributors of all cryptocurrencies, behind only Bitcoin and Ethereum. That is incredible. That is incredible. So here's the thing that I would say about this. This is my thought. Clearly, they have the ability so when they say they can disclose transactions, basically what they're saying is there's a way that you can allow third parties to see what was bought and what was sold, so that therefore they could see that it wasn't illicit. It wasn't like drugs, for example, without necessarily giving up who bought what and who sold what. Now, at least that's how I read that. That's how I understand it. So this is what the Monero Workgroup says, but it gets a little bit better, I should say. I was actually aware of this because I've looked at Monero a couple of times. I have never, to my knowledge, actually owned any Monero. I've thought about it. I've even thought about mining it. I think it's a very neat project, particularly from a privacy standpoint. At this point, knowing that the federal government is putting so many resources at it, I'll probably steer clear of it for now. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm rooting for the Monero team to win this. I really am. let's keep going. And this is Monero striking back. Not really. This was already planned. I just think it's incredible. So one of the weaknesses with Monero was that IP addresses, my understanding is IP addresses could be tracked. So you might not could follow specific transactions, but you could see the origination or the ending of transactions around IP addresses. And some people concerned that were concerned that created a security risk. Now, I may be saying that wrong. And if any of you are Monero buffs, you can please correct me in the comments. That may be over my technological head. But right here, amid the IRS bounty and competitors' progress, Monero developers ship a major update. I think this is incredible because it's going to make the job a lot harder. And I can't help but think that when you see that this cipher trace or this Russian group says that they could partially trace transactions, I can't help but wonder if this is the part they could trace. And if it is, I think it's hilarious because it kind of like destroys their ability to trace it. By the way, I am not trying to be supportive of someone like intentionally defrauding the government or intentionally, buying illicit products on the internet. I think that's absolute garbage. However, I believe that everyone has a right to privacy. And I don't think you destroy an individual's right to financial privacy just for a few bad actors. Because listen, by that logic, they should get rid of, none of us should be able to get a paycheck because dollars are used illicitly more than any other currency and or cryptocurrency in the world, probably all others combined. So saying that, I know a lot of people love to say things like, but I don't have anything to hide, so I don't really care about my privacy. Listen, I don't have anything to hide either, but I don't want the government going in the bathroom to watch me piss. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and saying I don't, someone posted this in my comments and I loved it. I had heard it before, but I'll say it again here. Saying that I don't have anything to hide, therefore I'm not worried about my right to privacy is like saying I don't deserve a right to free speech because I don't have anything to say right now. Like, that's not adequate. And I probably messed that quote up, but that's the point is I personally have a conviction that democracy only exists because individuals have certain rights such as privacy and free speech. You understand, when you start getting rid of someone's right to privacy, then you inhibit their ability to assemble together, for example, in things like protesting. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother ballgame. Once you take a right to privacy away, you can't get it back. So let's talk about this right here. A new Monero update brings improvements in performance, speed, security amid increased scrutiny from law enforcement and developments from competitors. First announced in September, Monero developers today went live with a network update featuring a new version of its node software codenamed Oxygen Onion. The product of 30 contributors, the update promises significant improvement across nearly all aspects of the privacy-focused cryptocurrency's performance. The highlight of the new update is a compact, linkable, spontaneous, anonymous group, whatever that means, feature. According to the Monero blog, CLSAG will reduce transaction size by 25% and improve transaction times by 10% while maintaining transactional privacy. The developers wrote, the CLSAG enables smaller, faster transactions with rigorous security. In addition to the CLSAG, the new update brings security improvements to the network, especially with regard to Dandelion++, which is responsible for hiding user IP addresses. That's what I was telling you about. Technically speaking, Monero updates are hard forks, so it's imperative that network participants make sure that their software is up to date. Users who store their XMR or Monero in a hardware wallet will need to stay up to date with the latest firmware, the blog noted. The latest update comes amidst an uncertain outlook for the cryptocurrency due to pressures on multiple fronts. And here they re-mentioned the bounty. So basically they pushed this additional security layer right as, and again, this really just goes to the community at large. Like, this community is like, okay, the government's investigating us. Okay, we essentially believe that we have a right to privacy, or we fundamentally believe in that right. We believe in transactional privacy. So therefore, we're just going to push this. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting group. Again, I wouldn't touch Monero personally right now, but I can't help but support the idea of protecting individuals' financial privacy. By the way, if you want to understand the ultimate idea behind this, you need to go look at the Fed coin. You need to understand what literally is already being created, the blueprints of the Fed coin. And if you're not familiar with the Fed coin yet, we're talking about potentially as early as 2021, most likely before 2025. but there are some reports that this may start getting pushed into 2021. I'll link that video above related to the Fed coin. Also, if you find this conversation, this topic a little bit interesting, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I've got a video coming up probably sometime tomorrow or maybe even on Monday. I recently had a conversation with a developer. He and I kind of had an interview. It was over an hour. We had an interview talking about his project and talking about cryptocurrency at large. Now, his project has nothing to do with Monero, but we started or the Fed coin. But we started talking about the Fed coin and his take on that topic. I think you'll find very interesting as well as his idea and his project and choosing to be able to fight back essentially against another country's strict financial laws. He's not an American citizen, so it's gonna be very interesting to be able to hear his take on willing to stand up and create a project that potentially long term may risk him and or family members going to jail over the project. You're not going to want to miss this interview, I promise you. Make certain that you hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Smash that like button and let me know your thoughts on Monero and financial privacy down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, crypto equals freedom. I sincerely believe that. This is Crypto Wealth. I'm out.